And we're joined by Napa High head coach Jason Chatham here to talk about the season. Coach Chatty, how's it going?
It's going well, Foster. How you doing, bud?
Great. It's great to be talking about baseball again. So with that, I guess a good place to start is the schedule itself. I've noticed that you guys get 4 non-league games and then all league. What are you thinking about that? And obviously you don't get your tournament, which you had originally planned for.
Yeah, that's what I was going to lead with. That tournament that was a tough loss to not have an opportunity to have that tournament. But I mean, at the same time, we do get an opportunity to play, so it's just the way the world is right now. You're not always going to get everything you want, and we did the math on it, and it's going to be 397 days between our last game against Vanden and then our first game that's going to be against Wood on the 17th. That's a long time. And so, even though the season is shortened, it's truncated, but, at least we're going to be able to play baseball.
Yeah, so speaking of that time, obviously a lot has changed in that time. From the last time I saw you guys on the field, you've lost a lot of seniors. Can you talk about how that's been, losing those guys, and who's just possibly going to fill their spots?
Yeah, that's first of all, I think that in many cases you can never really fill spots of guys. I thought we had some real talent last year, and again, I think our start showcased that, and I think that our practices were good. And I know you've heard me say this, but I'm a firm believer that if we had a chance to play out that season, that it would have been very good for us. It would have been a very good season, but obviously there was a bigger picture, and everything got shut down. But we're coming into this year, and we officially start next week, so we're still trying to figure out what all the pieces look like. So I have to lead with that, and there's some decisions that some athletes have to make between playing basketball or baseball, or wrestling or baseball, and because they have to choose one as of right now. So we don't know all the pieces of our team, but I will say this. This is my 20th year of high school coaching, and this is one of the best young infields that I've seen. Like we have some studs in the infield, and they're young, they're sophomore, junior, age, and these guys can play, and they're hungry, and they're fun. And I think that when you talk about guys that are going to maybe replace what we had last year, I think we're going to start with that group right there. They're pretty good.
That's right. I mean, Elliot Zudima's back, from what I understand. Dylan Snyder is going to be your anchor behind the dish. Having those guys has to be huge, and then obviously the seniors that you have now that are going to have
Yeah.
to make a decision.
Yeah, and Connor Ross, his body in the off season he put in some time in the weight room, and he had more than a year's worth of of growth in terms of just how much he matured. Like he really put in the time, and he took a jump, and so he is mashing the ball all over the yard. He's making great throws in practice. His confidence is surging. He looks the part. And then one of the guys that I knew was coming up from JV that I thought was going to be really good, but has exceeded our expectations, is Cameron Taylor. He's real good, and we can put him anywhere. We could put him at third, at short, at second, and that kid fits the narrative with that young infield. So there's a lot of excitement there. And then in the outfield, I think that an obvious guy to mention is Lucas Brandon. Lucas is returning here for his senior year, and he was our 4-hitter last year, and he's a very good outfielder. Made a diving play to save a game last year, if you recall. Somewhere around 397 days ago. And in any case, Lucas is a stud too. And we've got Calvin Snyder that may be playing in the outfield or in the infield. He might play both roles. We'll see how it goes, but I love Calvin, one of my favorite players I've ever coached. So we've got a lot of good guys coming back, and we're excited to see what happens.
And on the mound, I know you've got your son Aiden, and then who else do you have besides that? I have no idea there.
Yeah, so we actually we're probably going to have as our ace is probably going to be Dylan Snyder. And so we'll have to go small pitch counts with him. obviously because he's a guy that's going to catch. But I think that that's where we're going to benefit from one of the rule changes that came into place last year that we started to use, and that is the advantage of using a pitcher / DH. That wasn't allowed in the past, and we're definitely going to exploit that with him. And so what that does is it allows you to start a player and they remain in the game as the DH after they're done. And so we can manage a low pitch count with him, but still keep his bat in the lineup. So we can go 3-4 innings, and manage that, but still keep his bat, which is a huge bat for us, and not put any kind of extra pressure on his arm.
You're gonna mess me all up with that rule change because I normally have the lineup and when everybody's positions and then, oh man, okay, good to know about that rule change.
Yeah.
Anyway, so obviously we wouldn't be here today talking about like this if we hadn't gone through a global pandemic that we're still going through. How have you guys gone through that?
Yeah, that's been hard. That's such a tough question too. I'm in my classroom right now, and I've been in here all year, or pretty much, I guess, since October. I've got my mask, like all of us do, right? I've got my mask here, and 400 days ago, I wouldn't have even imagined that would have ever been a part of my life, but here we are, and it's now normal. I think that guys have managed differently. I think some guys have put in the time that they needed to put in to get better in some way. I think some guys, some people were maybe just surviving. Some people probably went through a range of emotions. I think that would be natural. I can tell you that when we first had our first workout, just getting everybody back together, that was a bizarre moment. I don't know that people knew how to act around other people, and trying to figure out, masks and baseball and putting this all together was really challenging. But I think you just survive. I think sometimes when you're riding a wave, you just hold on, and and you get through it. And we're in the orange tier now in Napa, which means that things are opening up a little bit. And obviously we're not out of the woods yet. We can, if we had any kind of a COVID exposure, we could be shut down and potentially forfeit games if that happened. And that's always looming over our heads. But the guys are in good spirits, and I think we got really great kids, and that's one thing that I love about our schools. We've got some guys that can play, and they're great kids. Our team GPA is as high as I've ever seen it, maybe higher than I've ever seen it right now. Our students are doing well in the classroom, and we've decided that we're going to specialize in the student athlete. We want both what we do in the classroom and on the field to matter. And I think that's part of the way that we've gotten through this pandemic, is we've really focused on the academics and working out on the side. And now that we're starting to come together, it's just a cool moment to see, because I think it's just bigger than baseball now. It's something more.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I've never seen this high school football in March and then go right into baseball. I've never seen this before. It's something that I've never been through, and I know football is being tested, but you guys don't have to be tested, so it's sort of like on you if anything happens. But yeah, it's just a weird time. Anyway, so back to the non-league games. You said Wood, and then I know you play Rancho, Vacaville, and then there's one more.
Yeah, well, so that's one of those fun things, is that I've probably made about 9 versions of the schedule, and it keeps changing. So, a few days ago, Vacaville and Rodriguez reached out, and they had tentatively been granted an extension to their season, which would have taken them into June. Well, the MEL has revoked that extension. And so all MEL games will end on the last day will be the 24th of April. So they're almost about to shut down, and we're not getting started until next week. So they had to cancel their games, which is, I wanted to keep that Vacaville Napa rivalry going. It's been around for, longer than any of us. And I was excited to do that. And, we can't play that game this year. And Rodriguez, which is obviously where I head coach for 14 years, we can't play that game either. So those have been taken out. We added another game versus Sonoma, which I'll update on our Instagram probably the next day. And that's going to be another Saturday night game, but we'll be playing it as a non-league game. And then we're probably going to add one against Bethel too. I'm not sure exactly. We haven't finalized that, but they reached out at a time that we needed another contact. So it's all in motion, and it's really challenging to keep up with all the changes because it's always happening. But that's where we're at. And And one more thing too, we've been asked to keep all of our non-league games on the road because there's a lot of challenges with admin having to, be at all the events. And there's so many events on campus now that they can't be spread out to watch. So, these games on our non-league schedule are going to have to be on the road, which is unfortunate because we wanted to showcase our facility, which is looking fantastic right now.
Gotcha. And then talk about playing league like basically right away. That to me that ramps up the intensity of the games right away because it's we got just Napa Vintage obviously all in one town here, and then you got Sonoma, Petaluma, Casa not too far away. So I mean that's gonna bring up the intensity right away. I feel like.
Yeah, and we've got a good league. There were other leagues I've been in and other situations I've been in where you look at the schedule and you say, okay, well, we should be able to go in there and you can throw your number 3 or 4 arm and you should, if things work out the way that they should, you could end up with a win. I don't see that anymore. There's a lot of parity in our league. And when you're talking about what's going to be a 12-game season with baseball, which is, if you're, no matter you're gonna win some games, you're gonna lose some games, no matter if you're a good or a struggling team. It's what you do with those games in the middle that determine if you're a champion or not. Because it's not like football where you can run the table, and usually anyway. I mean, it's possible, but with a 12-game season, every bad hop, everything that goes your way, I mean, that's amplified. And so you're right. I mean, we're going to start off against Wood, which will be a non-league game, and Wood will already have played. I need to look at their max preps, but they might have played 5, 6, 7 games by then, maybe more. I mean, maybe substantially more. We haven't started prepping for our opponents yet, but we're going to be walking into that first game at a decided disadvantage against a non-league opponent that has already played most of their season. And it'll be our first game, and it'll be after like 4 or 5 days of practice. So, we have some things stacked against us in terms of a competitive angle, but at the same time, I just keep coming back to this is a different year, and our kids have been absolutely working really hard to get ready for this moment. And hopefully we can get up to game speed in that game against Wood, because then we bounce back on the 21st against American Canyon, and we're in the league at that point in our 12-game season for the league championship that begins.
Yeah, so how important, like last year, it really hurt not having any of the VVAL games at all. How important is it for you to get those games back that we obviously didn't get to see last year?
Yeah, I definitely want to get going on that. And again, I know that last year's group would have loved to have had those games too, but where I came from in the MEL, when I coached, in the MEL, and winning league was the goal, right? You wanted to win league, and then if you could achieve that, then you focus on playoffs, and it was sort of a progression of priorities, right? And league has always been a really big deal. I mean, if you can win a championship, you can hang a flag, you can hang a banner. And so I think that all the teams in our VVAL are going to be really hungry for that. That's going to be a big deal right now, because that's all we got. We don't have playoffs. There's nothing else. So, I mean, I think we've all kept contact through we have an email chain that is a pretty long email chain. And I think everybody has a pretty similar perspective, that we realize it's about the kids and getting them through this moment. And there's a lot of understanding that we just want to get contacts to get them some games before they leave. Because, if we have 16 games this year and we had 5 last year, that's only 21 games for our juniors and seniors combined. You can get 21 games in a little league season, right? So it's going to be short. And because of that, every single pitch is going to count. And I really think league is critical.
Gotcha. So now I want to go into coaching. Any new coaches? Michael Crandall might be back. Is that true?
Yeah.
Talk about your new coaches.
Yeah. So Mike Crandall's back. He's become a really good friend of mine. I love the guy, and I love his demeanor, and it just cracks me up. Just thinking of him, even yesterday, he took out the mower and he wanted to mow the field, and he's got these crooked lines, right? Like, he's got these crooked lines, and he's striping the field, and he's, crooked, but that's okay. I appreciate the fact that my man was out there doing the work. and and then the mower overheats. So he's sitting there and he's kind of complaining on the mower. He gets his phone out and he's waiting for the mower to get to be cooled off and to get back on there. And he's just so full of life and energy. And if you could see that moment where he was just, I don't want Mike, if you're seeing this, you were pouting. I love you. You were pouting on that. And it was just hilarious and everybody saw it. But that's kind of what Mike Crandall is. And he's just a lot of energy and he's just so much fun to be around and he's really knowledgeable. So anyway, yeah, he's all we have in terms of a new coach. Obviously we lost a coach and that was OG. Ted Green passed away. That's Dustin's father. And he was one of our JV staff and, worked for ESPN, was really big, involved in kids' lives in the community here. And, I'm devastated about that. And I know a lot of us are, and I talked about this before. We'll be wearing OG on our helmets and we got an undershirt with OG on there. It'll be close to our chest, during game day, we'll have our jerseys over it. But, that's kind of the changes for this year. It's hard to ask, coaching is difficult to find the time to do it, especially if you're not a teacher. And we're really grateful to have the coaches we have.
I'm assuming that means that Dom, AJ, and the rest of your coaches are all back at their respective levels. Obviously Dustin, and then,
Yeah. Well, and Coach Koford is out there more formally. He was out there a little bit last year with JV. He'll be out there more formally this year. He's getting comfortable and we're really excited to have him more fully integrated into the program, but he did start last year. So it's not a new coach, but he only had a few weeks. Yeah. And then, the one that we're not sure of right now is Sean Cunningham. He just had a baby and he's got to figure out the schedule and whatnot, which can be challenging. And if we don't have Coach Sean this year, we'll have him next year.
Perfect. Let's see. Is there anything else I can think of? We've talked about the outfield. We've talked about the infield. We've talked about the pitching. I think that is it. Thank you very much, Chatty.